Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the great intro. So as part of my remarks today, I thought I'd tell you all a little bit about my story and the story of LuminAID and kind of the why, what, how, where behind our business and our mission. Michelle mentioned that LuminAID was on Shark Tank. I don't have anything in my presentation that specifically talks about Shark Tank, but hopefully there's time for Q&A afterwards. There should be, and I'm happy to answer questions about Shark Tank or anything that's on your mind with respect to that. I get asked about it all the time, so. So our story begins in 2010. It was just after the Haiti earthquake. My now business partner, Anna, and myself were graduate students in architecture school. And like everyone else who was probably remembering the news or watching all of the terrible stories of people struggling after that disaster, we were looking at pictures like this, thinking as designers, feeling quite helpless, to be honest, but also just asking the question, what more can we do to address these situations? And Haiti happens to be a country where even before the earthquake, the electricity grid was probably not in very good shape either way. So in terms of the list of places on the world where people were lacking basic infrastructure, including electricity, Haiti was definitely one of the places on this list. So thinking back to kind of putting a framework on how we went about coming up with our idea, I think the first thing we did was define the problem. So after an emergency like that earthquake, there's a whole list of things that have to be addressed. Medical issues, clean water, and then you get into kind of the basic shelter needs. And to Anna and myself, lighting wasn't really one of those things that was on the top of the list, but something that we thought could actually make a difference to help people on the ground. Zooming out, even outside of the disaster relief aid situation there, the more we researched it, we found out that there's more than 1.1 billion people in the world who lack stable access to electricity. So there's a whole spectrum. I mean, we have tons of lighting and power here in this room, so that's the highest level. Even in the middle, there are people who live in places where, because of certain facets or functions of the electricity grid, they don't have access to electricity all the time. And then the lowest end of the spectrum would be countries that have rural areas that are completely off-grid and extreme disaster situations like Haiti, after the Haiti earthquake. Furthermore, all of the types of things that we were seeing being used on the ground were things like kerosene lanterns and candles, which are dangerous, toxic, and hazardous. And so we wanted to think through, well, if there was portable solar technology that existed, why wasn't it more widely used after a disaster? So first step was we defined the problem. The next step was we had to ask some key questions. I mean, we were two students without any funding money. We didn't even know what it meant to start a business or anything like that. So this step, I like to think of it as kind of the gut check. So we just asked ourselves, like, is what we are thinking of in terms of our design and our technology, is this something that could be a better alternative to what already existed? And once we kind of confirmed to ourselves that the answer was yes, we've basically been working backwards ever since. So, in terms of our solution to the problem of having better access to clean lighting after disaster, we came up with the idea to make our lights pack flat. So most LuminAID technology comes like this. It packs flat, and the idea is there's a valve, you inflate it, and that becomes the lantern. And they're completely waterproof, and they float. And there's a rechargeable battery, solar panel, and LED light. That's basically the anatomy of a LuminAID light. We have different sizes and performance parameters now across our product line, but we have lantern-only products, and then this one, in addition to being a lantern, also charges phones. They take between 7 to 10 hours to charge in full sunlight. The phone charging one takes a little bit longer, closer to 12 to 14. You can use them on a partial charge, and you don't need any additional inputs or batteries. It all comes fully packaged, and it comes with a charge so that you can use it out of the box, for example, after a disaster. And they also have these adjustable handles, which you can use to hang in a tent, or when they're collapsed like this, you can clip it to your bag or your backpack and charge it on the go. So in addition to post-disaster situations, we figured out pretty quickly that our lights were useful for camping and outdoor adventures. And it's pretty much the same basic technology that is universally useful in any off-grid situation. And as I mentioned, fast forward to present day, in addition to the basic solar lighting technology, we've integrated things like phone charging capabilities, which has kept us very busy in the past year in terms of distributing not only our lights, but now this phone charging product. So in terms of the how, beyond the basic, how did we come up with the idea, it's been kind of a dynamic process over time, developing our technology. And one of the things that we did, just because like you all, we live in a place where we have free access to electricity, or not free, but it's widely available, we wanted to learn a little bit more about the context of where our lights might be useful. So this is a picture when we were still students. We traveled to places like rural India to understand even just how people lived and how they had access to electricity or not, and decide what sort of performance parameters would be useful for our lights. Although this is a picture of us having traveled in the past 5 years, we haven't actually had that much of a chance to travel and observe our lights in use, or not as much as we would have liked, I would say. And to that end, we've partnered with so many wonderful charities and distribution partners all over the world who have in turn given us feedback on our product and given us ideas for new features and new product improvements. And so taking kind of a step back, so this is a little bit of an academic exercise in thinking about innovation, but we've recently been thinking a lot about like the last few years and where we want to go, or what we've done with the technology and where we want to go with it. And someone in our office brought up this picture, which is kind of a traditional model for innovation. It's the S-curve, and it kind of demonstrates certain rates of growth and adoption, and then this cycle. And the reason why this kind of like struck a note with me was because I would say when we first started LuminAID, I was thinking like, oh, we're gonna make this thing and it'll be done. And then we'll just copy and paste it all over the world, and like there we have a business, and hopefully people will have more access to clean solar lighting. As it happens, it has been anything but a straight line. I mean, even just LuminAID's own product roadmap and innovation backstory alone, I don't think that Anna and I ever would have predicted that this is what the picture would have looked like. But I think the important takeaway is you have to continue to kind of evolve with the feedback that people are giving you, especially in the technology space, as I think all of you all know, you're consumers of things like cell phones, for example. And you have to listen to what people are telling you about what they like about your product and also what they don't like about it. Fast forward also to present day. So I mentioned the idea came out of a need to create clean lighting for disaster relief aid. And we've also done a lot of distribution in just traditional commercial markets, camping, REI, Amazon. But in terms of our humanitarian aid partnerships, distributions, mostly after disaster, but not uniquely. We've done there's around 200,000 LuminAID lights that have been distributed for use in humanitarian aid situations in over 100 countries. And these projects have been incredibly meaningful, not only because we have helped, or people seem to have been helped by our lights and phone chargers, but also, again, because we've learned so much from all the people that we've worked with to accomplish this. So in terms of where we're going, at this time, we're completely dedicated to helping people have better access to energy worldwide. We've been working again to improve our products based on feedback. And a quick story, by now in this presentation, you guys have seen different shapes of our lights. Same basic technology, but there's this kind of, I call them cube-shaped ones that pack flat like this. And there's also these ones that people are holding like this, which the nickname for those is the bag-shaped lights. So the bag shape is actually the first version of the technology that Anna and I developed. Also inflatable, also packed flat. And quite frankly, I really loved it. But no one else did, and so we changed it. But I think it's just a good lesson, and also like not getting so rooted that you can't adjust based on what everyone else is telling you, or really the world in our case was telling us to do. And then I've talked a little bit about our backstory as students. So it was architecture school. And in terms of my own personal why, why behind LuminAID, why I'm very motivated to grow and scale LuminAID as a business and also to scale our mission is I always wanted to be an architect. I thought that I was going to work at an architecture firm or do my own thing that involved building buildings, building roads, planning cities, bridges, whatever it is, like I was interested in it. And a lot of people say like, oh, you had all of that like interest and passion for architecture and now you do something totally different today. And that's true maybe in terms of the day-to-day execution of it. But for me, thinking back, what I think I was really interested in was also just infrastructure. Because great infrastructure can create so much opportunity. And I always wanted to be a part of that. And the way that I think about LuminAID and LuminAID's technology is also that it is infrastructure. Even if it exists in this kind of small, tiny package, it's scalable, it can be distributed all over the world, and I love that it can open up access in ways that people didn't have before having something like this. And so in making the case for just lighting and having access to power as a platform, I think there are some reasons. Some of them are more obvious than others, but obviously it helps people who otherwise have to use things like kerosene lanterns. It improves their health prospects because kerosene lanterns are the cause of many burns and respiratory illnesses worldwide. In terms of physical safety, a lot of places where our lights have been used include very densely packed tent cities and IDP camps where things like candles are major fire hazards. In terms of just creating additional time in the day and allowing people to go about their business and daily task work. In terms of improving education, I think this one is probably one of the top most scalable uses of something like clean solar lighting in places where they don't have access to electricity. And then also, as we've seen with the introduction of our phone charging product, even just basic communication, allowing people through their phones to stay in touch with friends and family. There are more phones in the world than people. So I think that shows also the hierarchy in which communication plays in people's daily lives. So when I think about this word platform, I think about situations where we've seen our lights used that, again, have created additional value or opportunity that didn't exist before. This picture's a little hard to see, but this is a picture taken in Malawi in 2015. So we were in Malawi with one of our key disaster relief aid distribution partners, Shelterbox. What Shelterbox does is, after the immediacy of a disaster, they distribute boxes of supplies that have tents and cookware, and basically a lot of the stuff you would need to just kind of get right back into some sort of daily routine after a disaster. And Malawi had experienced pretty unprecedented flooding that year. And this was actually 7 months after those floods. So you can see people were still using the stuff that had been distributed to them. And so there's a LuminAID light kind of hanging outside the tent, and there's a woman there, and we observed her. Basically, she had like husked all these corn, presumably for cooking or something else. She had all the corn cobs, and she was like cleaning them off and then organizing them outside. And 20 minutes after this picture was taken, some additional people came with a wheelbarrow, picked up all this corn cob that she had just kind of husked, and then that was going to be upcycled into something else. So she was able to extend her working hours in the day to accomplish what she needed to do. Otherwise, it got very, very dark pretty much after this picture was taken. And this picture also really resonates with me, or the experience of having observed that, because it's like, I'm like this woman, I'm also always trying to squeeze more time out of the day. So people I understand the need to just want to feel productive and have the ability to do so and not worry about where light is going to come from after dark. This is an image of that one of our partners took of an adult literacy program in Kenya. And then I'll close with this picture. This one was sent to us from one of our partners distributing lights in Puerto Rico. And I loved one of the hashtags when they posted this on Instagram was #NoExcuses. I'm not sure the kid felt that way about it, but I think, at least for myself, it's sort of like having gone through the experience of having had pretty much all the access in the world to things like higher education. It really brings the why for me in terms of LuminAID full circle, to be able to allow kids to have this opportunity to do something as simple as do their homework. And so I hope in kind of leaving you with that example that you can kind of think not just about products and services in terms of your own ideas, but really think in terms of platforms and how you can improve someone's life through opening up access in an even more scalable way than just one object.
Thank you so much. So now we're going to go into a time of Q&A. So if anyone has any questions for her, raise your hand, and there's a mic coming around. Yeah, she'll get you.
How long does it last?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
How long does it, let me just finish. How long does it last after you charge it? And how long does it last? How many years can you keep charging it and recharging it?
Both great questions. So all of our products at this point have different performance specs, but generally speaking, this light, there's different settings as well, which the lower it gets, it'll be a little bit harder to see in the lights here. But for on a full charge, it'll last up to 50 hours. And then this lantern-only product on the equivalent setting will last up to 24 hours. And you can use it on a partial charge, so you don't have to have it fully charged before you turn it on. It'll just last according to how much charge is in the battery at the time. And there's also kind of a little indicator that tells you how charged it is. And in terms of the number of years, the easiest way to think about it, I mean, we use rechargeable batteries, so the way that I like to explain it is it's very similar to your cell phone. So your cell phone will last a number of years, although you'll notice there is a drop-off in terms of like how fast it takes to charge and how long it will last over the course of a few years. But on the other hand, what is true is the more you use it, the healthier the battery is and the ability for it to recharge. So it is kind of variable depending on how much it is used, but it behaves very similarly to your cell phone.
So quick question, what is the price point, and do individuals and organizations actually buy these devices where they could buy some and donate them?
Yeah, so we have a lot of different ways in which we work with different types of customers. So the price points of the lights in retail, like if you went to Amazon or like REI, the lantern-only products, they range around, there are a few of them, $25, and then the phone charging product is between 40 and 50. And then in terms of when we supply organizations who buy in large quantities after disaster, the pricing is completely different than that, as you can imagine. And there's also kind of a case where smaller charities will write to us, and even just individuals. For example, after a lot of what happened in the Caribbean in the fall, people were literally like raising money within their own communities to take stuff to their families who are without stuff. So not official charitable organizations, but through our website, we do run a lot of different like subsidy programs for groups like that and individuals who have a dedicated charitable use for the product. And then the last thing we do that we've done since we started is a program called Give Light, Get Light. And so that's where people who are buying these lights for their friends and family, maybe for camping or maybe for their own emergency kits, can sponsor additional lights that we give to some of these small charities who are doing work all around the world in a variety of ways. So we've done like people who run schools and orphanages where they didn't have lights, even a few kind of makeshift hospitals. Yeah, too many use cases to name, but we'll rotate those charities out on our website. And it's a great way also to share more about all of these great organizations in the world.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to say I love your product, and thank you for sharing your story. And with the lantern, is the flashing light supposed to be like a distress signal one for it, or because my model had like a flashing, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting product development question. So one of the settings is this flashing setting, which by the way will last forever. So long we haven't, I think, even been able to put a like max hour on it because we haven't waited long enough for it to run out. Up until very recently, all of them were just flashing. And I think, yes, it's a setting you could use if you had to call attention in a particular situation. For a long time, we were like, if we made it an official SOS, what if people accidentally left it on? which is why we went with just the basic flashing. But we recently came out, or we will be coming out with a higher powered version of the phone charger. And for that one, the SOS setting is, the flashing setting is SOS.
Oh, and then one other quick question, I know you guys got like Shark Tank offers. I was just wondering, like when you first started out, what were some of like the huge challenges and then successes or like key moments? I know it's kind of a larger question.
Key moments. I mean, every day we're kind of starting again. So I don't know, it's like sort of the flashbacks as to what we've accomplished so far are not so present in my mind, but key moments would be, we've done a couple crowdfunding campaigns, including the very first way that we launched this, like the first version of the product back at the end of 2011. We were designers and we knew crowdfunding is kind of a way to be able to get funding for a project. It didn't even have to be a business. And like crowdfunding has just exploded since then as kind of a way to get startup funding. But that was very cool because basically in one campaign we accessed the entire world and saw even future shades of what our customer base or our marketing mix might be. So we learned those are cool, not only because you get funding and you can test out your idea very quickly, but you learn a lot. And then of course, Shark Tank. We aired in early 2015, so it's been a while. We've had a couple updates air since. Shark Tank has been really, really great about like featuring LuminAID as a story, not just about the business, but also the social impact piece of it. And I mean, getting a deal, like Mark Cuban is our first investor, and that's the only like institutional or venture capital funding we've raised. Wow. And that's been a really good experience. We didn't really know what to expect and who would invest in us. We practiced everything but the part where we got offers. Ended up getting offers from all 5, and it was very cool to just be able to like pick Mark and hit the ground running.